So when it comes to, this whole discussion comes down to actually Revelation. Revelation has us confidence and certainty that this is indeed from him. Because once we are confident and certain, we apply that, we accept it.
From that confidence, the simplicity of the model. What God sends down as revelation has to at least be compatible with our understanding, particularly in relation to his knowledge. So he's not expecting mankind to believe in anything. I'm going to hold it. Let me hold it such that you've got to fight your nature, you've got to fight the rationale that God is instilled within you to believe in Him.
Oh, you know what?
For us, one of our scholars said that the Quran has been revealed with such language that even the dim-witted amongst mankind will be able to understand it. And that should hold true regarding God, because the very foundation of all religion is God. So the knowledge of God, you must speak clear with the Son. So when God says, there's nothing like unto God, it should be clear. You can't now say there's nothing like unto God, but then God's right. It's possible for God to become a man or a woman or a cow or a monkey, etc. Because suddenly that's the negation of that.
You know the whole issues of incarnation. Which model do you?
Sorry, say that again, sorry.
There are different models of incarnation because every model that's been presented is being argued by philosophers that either it goes into a heresy or goes into something that is not totally incompatible with logical reason. I mean, if you have a model where there is three gods, but they work together, somehow united, but there's three gods. So it falls into either tritheism or falls into partialism and other heresies. So which model, because Christian philosophers to this day, if you study each one of them, see they're coming up with more and more models, neo-models. It should tell you why, because the previous models didn't really do the job of justifying that it actually fits with reason.
Or you'd say that, or there's an alternative to that, which is there are refinements in understanding.
Yeah. So which models do you?
And that's the way science works. You know, you create a more sophisticated model. Newtonian mechanics was replaced by quantum.
No problem.
Because there were more nuanced, more finite understandings to
What
experiments.
models of incarnation make sense to you? Can you refine that? Yeah. Which one? Which out of those? Of course, obvious.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I don't. When you say models of incarnation, can you give me some examples of what you're thinking of?
Okay. So we have a tri-personal entity, God, in your belief. One of this person decides to come down and give up or limit himself or itself, limit himself, and then take on a human form, incarnate into human form. So you have the infinite merging with or changing into a finite. So that's the model. Okay? So you can have whether it's to do with consciousness or to do with what exactly happens. Because when you have the infinite now takes on the form of a finite, do you have a convergence between finite and infinite, or do you have a merger? Are they separate like this? You know,
water goes into a glass.
but oil and water don't mix, right? So two natures. So you have the infinite and finite remaining coexisting at the same time, or is the infinite mixing with the finite, or finite mixing with the infinite? Imagine now you have the water becomes totally miscible with the oil. So no longer oil anymore, it's just oil, or the vice versa. The oil becomes miscible with the water and loses its properties and becomes the other one. You have two different natures. One nature is the infinite nature of God, perfect nature, and the other nature is imperfect nature of a human being, which is the creative nature of human being. So when God, in your belief, becomes incarnate into a human nature, either these things should happen. The finite is merged with the infinite. Yeah. So God is like 99% knowledgeable and 1% ignorant.
Well, I think the classic Christian response to that, and that's what I'll give you, because I'm not going to claim to understand the mechanism, and that's not what I'm going to advance.
But let's go for that.
Yeah, the classic Christian response to that would be that he was 100% man and 100% divine.
Okay, at the same time.
Yeah.
So that means you have the infinite remaining infinite and finite remaining finite. There's never been an incarnation. What it is, in simple terms, you have God taken in an additional nature and keeping the additional nature. He hasn't lost any of his nature. To remain 100% God, you have to have that nature intact, 100%.
Okay, repeat that again.
To say there is 100% God, 100% man, it means God has retained his divinity 100%. His nature has not lost. So Philippians 2 is wrong here in this case, so it goes against the scripture. Because it says Jesus' very nature, like God, humbled himself, made himself nothing, he emptied himself, right? But the philosophers are arguing differently, or the creed is arguing differently. Because emptying means emptying, limiting yourself from what you are 100% divinity. If you keep side by side, so scripturally this is not valid, it's against scripture. Okay? So we have to say you're now in a typical speculation from creed is developed, which is not supported by scripture. So if you have 100% divinity remaining, and then 100% human being, or 100% tree, 100% stone, whatever, this is an additional nature that's been added. Now, what is this addition then? This addition, God has taken in another form or a nature, but he's kept his godly form. So what does it mean he's added another nature? What does it mean in the first place? If God is God 100% in his nature, you can't add anything to it, because that's his full nature. You cannot simply add something to God. If you take something away from God, then you've taken something away from God. Then he wasn't God in his full nature. But here, so you have now an additional nature attached to this. So it becomes complex now. So you have a concept of God in which there are 4 natures, or 5. Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. So Trinity is actually 5 natures. The Holy Spirit incarnated itself into a dove. Scripture says that. So you have a dove, which is an additional nature to the Holy Spirit, human additional nature to the Logos, and the Father. So you have 5 nature in one. So it's no longer like
what do you identify the Logos as being?
Logos, according to the philosophers who propounded this idea long before Christian writers did, it's like
That's
a
true.
wisdom.
That's correct.
It's like a wisdom.
Yeah.
Someone's wisdom.
Truthful speech.
Yeah.
But in John's Gospel, what is the Logos defined as? What is identified as?
Logos.
Yeah. How is Logos identified in the first chapter?
Logos is defined by as theos.
So in the beginning was the
So
Word,
NRK and Logos.
and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was present with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made, and without him nothing that was made was made.
So
The law came to us through Moses, but grace and truth has been revealed through Christ Jesus. So how does John identify the Logos?
So if you read the way that you've read, there is
New King James
duality.
Version.
So that's a 2-in-1 God. There is not 2-in-1 God. Sorry, mistake. 2 gods. Because in the beginning was God, and there was another one which was also God.
But how do you view that text? How do you view that?
So John presents 2 gods.
Okay.
The way you've read and explained. So I would take that.
So John, who would have been, correct me if I'm wrong, John, who would have been a staunchly monotheistic Jew.
We don't know who John is. So the writer presents clearly. That's the problem.
Well, he knows enough about Jewish culture. I mean, I've heard that before, and I reading the Gospel of John, I don't accept the argument he wasn't Jewish. He knows too much about Jewish culture.
It's not about too much knowing Jewish culture. So the question is now.
But the Jews at that time would have been monotheistic, correct?
Yeah, but not every Jew is a monotheistic Jew.
Yeah, but so for him to be a monotheistic Jew and to make the assertion that the word was God, Logos, Eho, and Theos, how do you understand his understanding of that?
Psalms 82 says, God presides in the assembly of gods. This is the Jewish scripture.
Yeah, but back to the point. How did you?
I'm explaining.
What is the point John is trying to make there?
John has a theological perspective, what he's trying to put Jesus as. I am saying John knows very well, if he was a Jew, that God, in the Jewish concept, presides in the assembly of gods. So, what are these gods? Are they eternally with him? So, Jewish monotheism is not what you think it is.
But that John 1 passage, that's a direct allusion to what other passage in the Old Testament? In the beginning, what's the reference? He's making a deliberate reference to an Old Testament book. What's the book?
In the beginning.
It's Genesis.
Okay, no. In the
Agree?
beginning.
Do you agree? Do you agree?
In the beginning of what?
I want to make sure we've got common ground here.
Sure. In the beginning of what?
The question of how
Let's analyze John 1:1.
Okay, are we talking about Genesis?
John 1.
Okay,
Even
yeah.
articulate.
In the beginning was the
In the
word.
beginning of what?
I'm not comfortable with the idea of what points.
Clearly, this is a very faulty theology to start with. The very first verse is a philosophical mistake.
I've understood
The way you
always
present
to be
it.
that they have
Okay, in the beginning of what? Because God has no beginning. So in the beginning of what?
but
Well, if it's a direct allusion to Genesis 1,